Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 374 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today, my guest is Kristin. Kristin is the mother of a child with type 1 diabetes. She's also an educator. So we get to talk a little bit about how she does things with her son and a little bit about how she's feeling and what she's expecting as she goes back to school in the midst of COVID-19. This one's got a little something for everybody. Please remember as you're listening that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If the Juicebox Podcast has been valuable in your life, please consider taking a moment to share it with someone else. You could do that any way you want, and I would be grateful. Are you looking for a way to share the pro tip episodes from the podcast with someone else? DiabetesProTip.com. Need a great endocrinologist or have one to share? Juiceboxdocs.com. You can support the podcast while supporting type 1 diabetes research by going to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and doing the T1D Exchange survey. You might even consider checking out the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor at dexcom.com/juicebox. Or maybe you want to get yourself a free, no obligation demo of the Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. You can do that at myomnipod.com/juicebox.
My name is Kristin, and I live in Virginia.
I guess we'll start by saying that in your email, I guess I must have said something on the podcast at some point that made you realize that Arden was diagnosed at the same hospital that your child was. Is that right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Ah, that's interesting because I don't live in Virginia.
I'm sorry?
I said that's interesting because, I don't live in Virginia and I never have.
So what I was gleaning from when I listened to one of your first podcasts or was reading on the site was that you guys were on vacation and then the nearest children's hospital was I think you said you all were in the Outer Banks or something. And then the closest children's hospital was
King's Daughter.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name or not.
King's Daughter, right? Is that the name?
Yes. Uh-huh. Yep. CHKD.
It's a long time ago.
And then you were talking about some of the doctors, and then one of the names came up. Are you still there?
I am. I'm listening. Do
okay.
people not listen to you in your personal life?
My screen did something weird. I just want to make sure.
I just figured maybe you have a lot of kids and you're not accustomed to being listened to. You're like, there's so much quiet. What's happening?
That too. You mentioned something about one of the doctor's last names, and it was in the same group, a doctor that's been there forever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the same people that we used. And so, yeah. But we loved them. And I think I can't remember. We have Dr. Jarisco is the main doctor that we see.
Okay.
And then the diabetes educator, her name is Debbie Miles. Those were the main two that we worked with.
Right.
But I know there was like a Reif Schneider or something. And then there was a couple other doctors in there that we've, heard of, or had like a wave down the hallway or something like that when my son got diagnosed.
We were in Virginia Beach on like a little vacation with family, and we were driving towards like the first hospital that my navigation system told us about. And keep in mind what that means. There was a navigation system in my car in 2006, which is not like Apple Maps popping up and being like, "Do you want to stop at Wawa on your way?" Like it wasn't quite that fancy. But we're driving to the hospital, and I called Adam, who some people might recognize as the doctor who came on and talked about coronavirus a couple of times, who's, Arden's pediatrician and my son's pediatrician. And I was like, I'm going to this hospital. Arden has diabetes. And, it's like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sure he was like, you're out of your mind. Like, I'm sure is what he was thinking. But I started really describing it to him. And of course we had done a finger stick, and so he's like, oh yeah, you got to go. And I was like, right. And then he jumped online and found he's like, I think you should reroute to this other hospital. So we just changed course and went there.
Oh, okay.
And that's how we ended up there. And, you know, obviously a really good diabetes center within that hospital.
Yes.
But, you know, as to whether or not, it's funny, I ask people all the time about their diagnosis, like, how was it in the hospital? Like, you know, what was your experience? And if I thought about my experience was I cried and I was confused. You know?
Yep. Agreed. And we get to deal with it again. I apologize.
Kristin is at work. Are you a teacher?
I am a teacher. Yeah.
Okay.
We're in our pre-service days. So the days that we hang out and get ready right now.
Well, maybe. So there's no students in the building?
There are no students here yet. We will start the day after Labor Day, but we're not even going to have kids then. I'm a fourth grade teacher, and the way our city's rolling everything out is kindergarten through third grade will start on a hybrid schedule. So like every other day, flip-flop thing next week, and fourth and fifth grade and up will gradually be released back into the schools on hybrid schedules later. They want to see how it goes, number of cases and all that good stuff, how it goes. So
people won't hear this right away. So make your prediction. Like, how's this going to go?
Oh my gosh. So we've been talking, there's 8 teachers on our grade level. So we've all been talking about how things are going to work out. And I personally think it's probably going to at least be the first 9 weeks, first quarter. So probably November. We're a really teeny little town. I don't mind sharing where I am. I'm in Pocosin, and so it's a little small town. There's only like 12,000 people, and we've only had like 50 cases the entire time.
Right.
So it's either they're all going to get together and school's going to start and the cases are going to go crazy, and then they'll have to, lock it down and we're all virtual, or we'll start and the kids will continue to be asymptomatic and nobody will know, and they'll start releasing them in. So
I can't wait. I think one person's going to get tested positive. Everyone's going to freak out, and that'll be the end of it.
Pretty much. We've been told if somebody gets tested, or if they test positive, then it's like between 2 and 5 days of sanitizing the school. And, then you got to look at who's in the room and who's part of the classes. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be very interesting.
Yeah, that is something. There's my wife's a big proponent of the idea of putting people together in smaller groups and keeping them together. I think those are, I'm going to use a word and get it wrong. Like, I feel like it's called a cohort, but but she's such a big proponent of that being a way to do things like this. So I don't know. I guess you're going to find out. I'm just all I can tell you is that this summer Cole played in a collegiate baseball league. And I was at a game one day and he hit a home run, which was very fun. And I walked and I got the ball. So I picked the ball up and I stuck it in my pocket, and I got back to where I was sitting and I threw it. I think I threw it on top of my cooler or something like that. And like 4 days later, he said, "Hey, our game got canceled today." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Oh, some kid we played last, week has corona." And he's like, "So they're canceling our game and the other team that we played." And I was like, "Oh, do you know what kid?" He goes, "I'll find out." So he comes back. He goes, "Hey, remember that home run I hit?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "It was the pitcher."
Oh no!
And I'm like, "So are you telling me that this Corona boy was touching this baseball?
Oh no!
He threw it towards you. You struck it, and 400 feet later, I picked it up, and that's it." And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I don't seem to have coronavirus." So I said, "I guess we're okay." But I brought it freaked me out for a second because I brought the ball home, and as I was coming through the house, I stuck it back in a bag, and it ended up in my bedroom, and I literally stuck it on top of the tissue box next to my bedside. So for everyone who's wondering how things spread, I took Corona baseball and jammed it on tissues that I later rubbed all over my face and nose.
Just let everybody have it and call it a day, right?
And Kristin, I'll tell you right now, if you asked me if I was being careful, I would have said absolutely I was.
You're outside. Of course you can't get it outside.
I was outside. I was nowhere near anybody. I wore a mask when I went into the restroom. I was completely careful, except when I touched the Corona baseball and then jammed it on my tissues. Other than that, I was completely safe. So just everyone remember that when you're like, I'm being careful. You're an idiot. So am I. And we all are. And nobody's being careful. You're being as careful as you can be, That's really interesting. Well, is your child school age for your school?
He is actually. So his name is Caleb, and he will be starting kindergarten this year. Oh. What a year to start kindergarten. And he will, we chose the hybrid option for him. So there was 2 options. You could do hybrid where you go to school every other day, or you could do virtual where you just stay home and hang out on a computer. Yeah. And he is 5 years old and crazy and loves people and loves being out and about. And he really, really needs school. So he will start, we don't know, he'll be in school 2 days a week. And so he'll go to the local primary school here and hang out with other kindergartners, other little, germy kids.
Oh yeah, they're disgusting.
And kids. And then he'll be hanging out with mom at work for 3 days a week while I do virtual teaching and he does virtual online.
Okay, so 2 things. One, I just decided I'm putting this up now because of the relevance and timing. And 2, so by the way, you just jumped ahead of like 30 recordings. People are going to be very angry at you. But unless you really botch the rest of this, and I'm just like, she fell apart at the end. I'll you. But my question is what's the 2 questions actually, I guess. What's the idea of limited days? Is it he's there 2 days and a group of other kids is there 2 other days?
Yes, it's all about the size of the classrooms. Okay. So we have, again, our town's really small. And so we have 4 schools total. We have 1 primary, 1 elementary, 1 middle, 1 high school. And so what they can do they'll have A days and B days. So A days go like Mondays and Thursdays, and then B days go Tuesdays, Fridays. And that way they can sanitize in between. And then we get Wednesdays as a teacher work day just to collaborate, really get a good sanitizing in there. And then that way the kids aren't missing super extended amount of days without school. And that way they can have no more than 12 kids in a room at a time. They figured out that 12 kids is like the max number that they can have in a room, spaced 6 feet apart and in their own little desk bubble in the classroom.
What are the chances as an educator, in your opinion, that 5-year-olds will stay spaced apart?
I fully expect that if he doesn't, he's really good about wearing a mask, and that is a rule, is the kids are supposed to be wearing masks. But recess, forget it. They're gonna do their thing. They are eating lunch in the classrooms, and so they are going to be stuck at their desks eating lunch. Same thing throughout any other classroom that's in. And so I think they're going to try their best, but I think recess is where they're going to fall apart. That's not as regulated as PE, but we don't even know what recess looks like yet. So
let me suggest,
the buses.
Let me suggest you take 2 ropes and a 6-foot long stick. Now, here you go. You tie one end of the stick to one rope, and the other end of the stick to another rope. And then you tie the ropes around the kids' waists so they can run about, but they can't quite get close to each other. And then you continue to do that like a honeycomb pattern and set all the kids in that situation. Then they can just kind of move like a bird, like a group of birds. What is it called? A flock. They can move in a flock. I can't believe I couldn't think of flock. I was in the middle of an absolute ridiculous idea, and then I lost flock and ruined my flow. That was flocking difficult. So you just move it around like that, and then they'd be fine. I don't know who's going to untie them or tie them back up. That person will probably have to be, euthanized, I guess, right? After they help the kids. Yeah. So I'm not making light of it because I don't believe in being safe. I'm just trying to say that I think that the nature of man is going to take over at some point. And I think the opposite of someone's going to get sick and everybody panics is no one gets sick. And inside of 2 weeks, everybody's like, screw these rules.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is going to be quite a little experiment. How do you feel about Caleb and his type 1 being in this experiment?
So, I will say we really trust our doctors, his pediatrician, his endocrinologist, everybody we've spoken to. I mean, listening to your podcasts and reading and stuff, everybody has said they're no more susceptible, than any other kid. Mm-hmm. My husband and I are kind of old school we say this unless something major happens, but, we're kind of under the idea that you got to live life. He's got to get out there. He has not been able to go, and he doesn't get to go play over other kids' houses and, mommy just drop him off and drive away because of his situation. And, so he needs that interaction, and it's a safe place. He's got a nurse, and I'm right down the road. And, so we kind of feel like the benefits of being in school and around other kids outweigh the chances of him getting sick. And my husband and I are really particular on watching his numbers. He's got the Omnipod, he's got the Dexcom, all that good stuff. We have an excellent nurse. So we're hoping that we can be a good team and just rally around him, and he's going to do whatever he's going to do because he's going to love life and enjoy his time. And he's so excited about school, and all the adults will do all the worrying and the background kind of prep.
Hold on 1 second. Whoever's knocking, I'm recording. It's very likely my son who wants me to make him breakfast. I guarantee you that's what that was. He's 20 years old. He's like, can you get me some eggs together? He's in between classes right now. He's in his bedroom getting a quantitative economics degree in my house. Ugh. So that's exciting. And Tuesdays, which today is, are his like, he's got like 3 classes pretty much stacked on each other through the middle of the day here.
I don't miss college days.
No, yeah. So it's funny because everything you just said, mm-hmm. I can easily find myself agreeing with, right? Like about going mm-hmm. back to school. I absolutely can. I'm not even like, it's not like you said one thing that I completely disagree with and I'm just being, amenable. I really can find myself agreeing with everything you just said. And at the same time, we have the ability, because right now Kelly's working from home because of Corona and they're not making her go back anytime soon. And I obviously do what I do, from my house. And mm-hmm. so when the option came up for the school, would you like to go back or would you like to stay home? And we said to Arden, let's first, I guess, figure out what she wants to do. So we got her aside and they said, hey, look, they're giving you the option. What do you think? We like to give her the illusion that we're like taking her opinion into account.
Letting her pick.
Like if she said something crazy, we would just be like, oh, well, if that's what you think, sure. We just shut that down in 2 seconds. But we were like, what do you think? And she didn't hesitate. She said, I could stay home again. And I was like, yeah. She goes, oh, I'm doing that. And it's like, why? She goes, so much easier. I get to sleep later. I don't have to get dressed in the morning. She's like, this makes a ton of sense to me. Plus, it's better for me. And I was like, how's it better? She's like, I don't have to get up early. And I was like, gotcha. That was really, I think, the real crux of her decision-making process. And we said, well, what about people? And she goes, I don't know.
I don't need people.
Yeah, it'll be all right. She goes, and she has a circle of friends mm-hmm. that is interesting because they don't particularly have a second circle. So it's not like these 6 girls leave each other and then each of them has 5 other friends. Do you know what I mean? Like it's mm-hmm. just, they just stay together really. And so they've had some interactions and they're all starting to get their permits now. So they're driving, and picking each other up for things and, stupid stuff like that. I'm going for a lot of rides with little girls is basically what I'm telling you, which sounds terrible, but isn't how I meant it. Yeah. And, it's just me and a bunch of little girls in a car usually. And, but don't worry, I let them drive. And, and it's very simplified. They'll come over to the house a little bit. A couple of them, they'll sit outside, light a fire at night or watch a movie outside or something like that. And none of them are going back to school. They all were just like, no, thanks. Like, we'll just stay here. So everybody makes this decision. 2 weeks pass and the school pops up and goes, hey, you know what? We're not going to let the kids go back to school anyway. So all that, all that for nothing, right? Just like they did a 180 in 2 seconds. They're like, no, forget it. I think they're letting like the really little kids go back. I guess
that's how ours is.
Yeah, I think they're more expendable little kids. Apparently, I don't know. Like, I'm just kidding.
easier to replace.
Well, they're smaller, so when you bury them, you don't need as much of a hole. And like, so I think that's how they're probably thinking about it. But no, I mean, I obviously don't know the idea behind why it's okay for little kids, but not older kids. None of it makes sense to me. I actually think we're all in a situation that none of it makes sense. Like everything you try to do doesn't make sense. Like in my opinion, you either have to say it's over, by over meaning we're just going to all go back and do what we used to do and people are going to get sick. Yep. Or you got to keep doing what you're doing. I don't see where the middle ground confuses the hell out of me. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, Kristin, it's like starting with a condom and halfway through going, I had it on for over half the time. You know, the rest of this is probably going to be fine. Like, and by the way, if you're only going to wear it half the time, don't take my advice on this, but I'd wear it the second half, not the first half.
I would agree.
Well, that's the part where the magic really happens. And so at least, in the confines of the condom. And I didn't mean that until I said it. Now I love the pun. But but so I just really don't, I don't know. Like I wear a mask everywhere. I stay distant from people. I still, I clean my hands very, very carefully when I go out. You're in the grocery store and somebody like intersects you stop. You're like, go ahead. Like there's all that still going on. I think if there was a fight in a grocery store right now, which obviously now you all know the secret that I only ever go to the grocery store, but because these are my only examples. But if there was a fight and like somebody was like, I'm be like, oh, that kid's beating up that kid. That's not fair. I'd be like, oh, well, and I'd walk away, but like 6 months ago, I would have just grabbed one of them and been like, what are you doing? And, so there's that kind of stuff. And having said that, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, if anybody claims to know anything about this, I think you're hoping more than understanding. So it's either going to be terrible or it's not. Some places might be okay and some might not. And I don't know how the hell you think you're going to guess which is which. So I'm super interested. Like, I love using your kid as a test case. So let's get him in there.
Great, thanks. I like CHKD, but I don't know if I want to visit them that often.
You're not heading over. I mean, listen, I think at this point for children, the idea that, they can be asymptomatic and fine or fight it off pretty quickly, or obviously have not been a big part of people who have been, ill and really, really impacted by it is pretty obvious from the data. But I do wonder about that next step. Like, is, I'm not wishing this on you, but like, is Caleb going to grow like horns when he's 35, out of the side of his head or something like that? And they'll be like, oh, those are those corona horns. Yeah. That's all the kids that went back to school in 2020 got those.
We'd be doomed because we got a preschooler too. So. Oh
yeah. Well, they'll kill each other have you ever seen rams run into each other? It's vicious.
Oh no. Well, they already tried to do that without the horn. So
that's hilarious. So tell me a little bit about Caleb's, diagnosis, if you would. Okay, it's time. You've thought about it long enough. I mean, it's not even a commitment. What are you thinking about? You're just asking Omnipod to send you a free, no-obligation demo of the Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. That's not a commitment. That's, you get something fun in the mail and you give it a try. myomnipod.com/juicebox to get that going right now. When you get there, it really is just a couple of moments of information, and then Omnipod, with much glee in their hearts, sends you out a free no-obligation demo. You try it on, you decide if you like it, and then you move forward or you don't. It's that simple. Would you like to experience everything that comes with insulin pumping, including temp basal increases and decreases, extended boluses for those tough meals like pizza and pasta? If you're MDI, you're probably injecting multiple times through those meals, but you don't have to do that with the Omnipod. And with the Omnipod, you get to do it tubelessly. All of the other pumps are connected to a controller by a long piece of tubing that delivers the insulin from the controller to the site. But Omnipod is all in one. It's tubeless, it's self-contained, and it's worth understanding what it is. So have them send you a free no-obligation demo. It's that easy. A pod experience kit will show right up at your house. You can try it on, wear it, do whatever it is you do in your life, see if it's for you. If it is, great, and if it's not, no harm, no foul. You tried. Just Just imagine an insulin pump that you can hide with your clothing or wear out loud and proud. It's up to you. It has no tubing. You don't have to take shots all day anymore. And when you're having those tough meals, you can manipulate your basal insulin or do whatever you want. It's all within your control. You're in control of your insulin, basal and bolus. It's huge. You know what else is huge? Nope, not that. The Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. You want the Dexcom G6. You need the Dexcom G6. I am putting you in a trance right now. You're listening to my very deep voice, and my very deep voice is saying to you, get a Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Look, that's it. You've been hypnotized. I don't even have to keep talking. It's already over. But just in case that didn't work, Dexcom.com/Juicebox. Go find out about rise and fall rate alarms. Find out what it means to be able to see your blood sugar, speed and direction right there on your cell phone, Apple and Android. Learn the joy and goodness of no finger sticks and no calibration. Would you love it if someone could see your blood sugar from afar? Would you like to see your child's blood sugar while they're at school? Or your wife's while she's sleeping? Or anybody else in between? Dexcom users can share their blood sugars with up to 10 followers of their choosing. It's amazing. I could whip open my phone right now and tell you that Arden's blood sugar is 103. I am nowhere near Arden, but I know what her blood sugar is, and I know that it's stable. You could have that too. Dexcom.com/Juicebox. And don't forget that Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. myomnipod.com/Juicebox. Round out the trifecta. Go to t1dexchange.org/Juicebox and throw in your information with that survey. Make a difference in people's lives with type 1 diabetes while you're supporting the podcast. It's 100% HIPAA compliant and totally anonymous. You can drop out at any time. Links to all of the sponsors are available at juiceboxpodcast.com, or they're right here in the show notes of your podcast player. Let's get back to Kristin.
He was 3 years old, so we've passed 2 years, and we noticed him going, peeing a lot. He was wet in the bed, and he had already, he was doing really well with potty training and stuff, especially at night. And so we just chalked it up to he's just sleeping too hard. He can't wake up. And he was drinking a ton of water, like just dying of thirst. And so we called the doctor, and we had spoken to one of the nurses. This was on a Saturday, and they're like, well, we'll schedule a time for him to come in on Tuesday. This was in April of 2018. And so we go in just kind of like bebopping along. It's the end of the day. We're the last appointment. And they do a finger prick, and then they did a urine test, and his blood sugar was like 224, and which in the realm of things compared to other kids, I have found out is not too awful.
Right.
And the doctor called the endocrinologist at CHKD and spoke with them, and it was a lot of information real quick. It was very, very end of the day. It's the doctor and us in the office. And he said, Caleb's pediatrician. And he's like, so I spoke to this doctor, and y'all need to go ahead and pack your stuff. Somebody's going to need to stay with him the night at CHKD, and they'll fill you in on what's going on. It's looking like he's got diabetes. And that was it. And my husband and I are just completely in shock. Caleb's still mad that he got a finger prick and that hurt. And then he had no idea what was about to come for him. We actually got all packed up, and we got him in the car. We went to Chick-fil-A and got him, we still laugh about it, we got him a chocolate milkshake on the way to the hospital. And we had no idea what chocolate milkshakes do to blood sugars or anything. And we were just trying to make him happy. We didn't understand what was going on. Got to the hospital. They got him in. They did all the blood work and everything. That was probably one of the most traumatizing things for him and for me to sit and deal with. And they told us like officially the next day. We spoke with the diabetes educator, Debbie Miles, who was amazing. And she just threw a ton of information at us. And we had trainings all day that Wednesday. Caleb hung out with a friend of ours, actually, that came in and sat with him in like the playroom they have upstairs. And I spent the night with him, and we started trying to learn how to do the whole dosing with insulin. And he was so teeny that he had to get the diluted insulin. And so they were trying the teeny tiny little syringes, and my husband and I are like, what the heck is this? How does this work? I didn't understand the carb counting and the ratios or anything like that. And I just remember every 2 seconds crying because, I thought I had done this to my kid. And then we got a little more, education that Thursday. And they actually told us, because he was so small, they were like, you know what, you need to try a pump. And I know a lot of people say that their doctors make them have, diabetes for so long and you have to get used to doing insulin, injections and stuff. But Dr. Jurisco was wonderful. And he's like, no, let's just try a pump. He's got such small amounts anyway. I mean, he was getting minute amounts of insulin at first. And so we started the Medtronic, and they told us about the CGM and everything. We got a loaner, and we learned how to use the pump. We went home with the loaner that Thursday. My husband and I probably called the emergency number like 3 times from Thursday to like the following Monday when we went back to get, just because, his range was 100 to 180 was his safe range at the time. And then if he was over 250, check ketones and do all these other things. And I remember he'd hit like 252 and we'd be like, oh my gosh, he's going to die. What do we do? And so we'd call the doctor on call, and they're like, it's okay. Just give him some water, give the insulin time. We were still learning, we had to bolus him after he ate because he was picky, and we were still trying to figure out what foods he would eat and what was safe. And he eats anything he wants, but at the time, how much he would eat. And so, and then we got set up later the next week with his CGM and with the Medtronic and the Guardian, and then his own pump and everything. And I had to quit work because I was the full-time caretaker, and he was in preschool at the time, and he was not allowed to be at preschool without somebody. They weren't licensed or anything to help take care of him. And so I went every other day to preschool with him, and I would hang out for 3 hours while he did his classes and stuff. And I would bolus him for his food and snacks and stuff. And that was our whole spring. And then that was it. And then the next year, his preschool was wonderful. And they actually got licensed on giving him his insulin doses. They learned how to use his pump and everything.
That's great.
And so, we kind of signed his life away, that we trusted them to do it. And he finished out 2 years, 1.5 years of preschool. And when we traded to the Omnipod and the Dexcom, because my husband listened to your podcast a long time about it. And we were tired of the tubes, and just the site changes took forever. And it was just a whole lot. And we weren't happy with how accurate the CGM was at the time. And we were just annoyed with it. So we tried the Omnipod and the Dexcom. Absolutely love the way that we do everything now. So much easier. And Caleb has said he likes it. There's no tube, but he's not getting caught on anything. And he helps out with his site changes and everything. And we got a little routine down. And
do me a favor. Just take one pause right here.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going to put the ads for Omnipod and Dexcom.
Okay.
And then we'll start back up again. Okay. So,
good timing.
I didn't know you were going to say that, but not only did you say it, you said it right where I was going to put the ad. And I was just like, my gosh, this is easy. Should I just do the ad live with Kristin right now?
I can for you.
Can you? That'd be so funny. Do I say it enough that you could probably say it?
What is it? Well, I know I was thinking about the Contour Next test strips ad, actually. Like Contour Next test strips. You know, if you put a dab of blood and it doesn't get it all, you can do it again. And so, yeah, every time I pick up his Contour Next, because we have that too, your ads are working real well. I think about that. So, yeah.
That's so funny. I could slip into it in 2 seconds. The episode or two ago, I did 2 ads and I didn't pause. And I just did the whole thing and I was done. And when I got done, I actually left it in the episode. I was like, I can't believe I just did that. That was amazing. Even I was like, I got through that whole thing. I didn't make a mistake. I didn't say anything stupid. I was like, sometimes I'll just wander off into just absolute like odd things. And later I'm like, I should probably just trim that up a little bit there. I get a little drifty.
Autopilot.
But I'm glad it's working. And by the way, if you're an advertiser, you hear what Kristin's saying? Yeah. It's not too early to talk about 2021. Give me a call. Anyway, well, I guess I should ask, like, you didn't just get bullied into something by a guy on a podcast. What made you change from the Medtronic to the Omnipod and the Dexcom?
So, actually, I had a student 2 years ago and he had the Dexcom. And so this is my first year teaching here in my little town. And Caleb still had the Medtronic and everything. And I remember seeing his Dexcom and I'm like, what is this thing? There's, you don't have to finger stick. No way. And he just bebopped along. He only had the Dexcom. He was still doing the injections and everything. But I remember seeing that. And then with listening to your podcast, and then my husband was talking with me about it. And we asked Caleb, like, hey, would you like to try this? What do you think about this thing? We got the little test Omnipod to try that out. And so he wore that around for like a day. And he's 5. He's more worried about playing and what kind of video games he can play and what friends are coming over than he is what kind of pump he's wearing, because that's just not his. He deals with it when he has to, but that's not his world right now.
Yeah.
So we said, let's try this out. If Scott's wrong, then we'll just not listen to the podcast anymore and we won't use them anymore. We'll just go back to what we've been doing, because it's, the worse than that would be the shots, and we don't want to deal with that.
Kristin, let's just clarify. If you don't like the pump that's the advertiser, you can still listen to the show. You don't have to I know. You don't have to jettison it. Don't give people ideas. You're like, wow, if I don't agree with them once, I can stop listening. No, you're not even allowed to stop listening. Stay subscribed. Listen to every episode. These are the rules. Don't give people those thoughts. They're not allowed to stop. None of you are allowed to stop listening. There. Okay, Kristin, now keep your thoughts going. Jeez. You see how easy it is to get a thought in someone's head. Don't joke about that stuff. Jesus.
But we ended up, we love it, and it really has been great. I was kind of nervous about the Omnipod because of his size. I mean, he's teeny. He's like 45 pounds. And he's always been on the smaller side. And I'm thinking, he's got this big old block stuck to him. He's going to knock it off. How's that going to work? And it's been great. The changing sites is so much easier. We have the sticky patches that we put around it. And he does his thing. I like that we can rotate sites more, because with the pump, it was kind of harder to, you had to have like double tubes stuck in 2 places and trying to find the right spot and everything. So with the pod, we can put it in more spots and try things out that he likes. And we like the PDM setup. It's so much easier to use the little, phone thing that came with it. And then we have a phone that we use for his Dexcom, and he just keeps it in a little fanny pack that he wears on his back, one of the spy belts that are for running and stuff. And you would never know.
That's cool.
He gets compliments all the time on it.
I have to ask you, so you to go back just a second, like you said, you went into the preschool, and for that first time, was he 3 then?
Yes.
Okay. And you kind of you sat off to the side, or I used to sit outside. Did you sit outside, or what did you do?
It's at a church. And so they just let me sit I would hang out like in the front foyer. I ended up getting bored. And so they let me help with the volunteers, like setting stuff up, cutting things out, and just being around so that when the time came for lunch or snack or whatever, that I was there to be able to go help him.
I see. I would have fallen asleep in one of the pews. I think I would have. I used to go out in my car and listen to the radio and just chill out.
Yeah, I was on high alert at this time. Yeah. So.
But don't worry, I was running back and forth like a moron. Like there was no CGM back then, so I was like, it's time to test again. And oh my, I do not remember that time as fondly as I'm making it sound. I don't think I'm making it sound that fond, and I'm still like, oh. But you quit your job to do it. Like that's pretty badass. Like you just were like, this kid's like, you never thought like, oh, he's little, we don't even know him that well, like nothing like that.
No, I was a teacher in another local city, and it was April, and so at that time my husband and I were talking. I mean, he's diagnosed on a Tuesday, and so that whole week, in the hospital and stuff, I'm dealing with that. I'm not even thinking about work. And I had a student teacher at the time, so that actually helped out a lot with my room. I had somebody that was kind of in charge, and they just had a sub kind of sit there and, just be a warm body in there. And so my students were still taken care of. I knew that. And then I remember
painting a lovely picture of education.
I know.
We were legally covered. Don't worry, we were legally covered. It's fine. I don't know what those kids like learned or anything, but it occurred to me, you're the teacher who like the kids come home and go, yo, guess what, my English teacher just flaked out and quit. I don't know, a kid got something and she's gone. Like it's just that's the other side of it. Wow, that's really cool. It's interesting to hear this side of it is what I mean. Like it's because I'm used to the other side. Like, hey, I'm used to Arden coming home and going, hey, my math teacher got pregnant, so she'll be gone pretty soon.
So I ended up having to quit, and my boss completely understood. She was awesome about it. And I actually went in and visited my students at the time. And the cool thing is this was actually a group that I had looped up with. And so I had known them for 2 years. And so we had a really good relationship. And I just explained, Caleb got sick and this is what's going on. And I'm crying and they're crying. And so but I would come and visit for like field day, things like that, when we still had that fun stuff in school.
Yeah.
And then I was able to get a job. We decided we were ready for me to go back because we could only do so long. Like, unfortunately, I could not be a stay-at-home parent. So when his preschool agreed that they would, because we knew he had 2 more years, he's in that weird birthday time. His birthday's Halloween. So he's the older kid in class.
Gotcha.
And so when the preschool agreed to actually let him come and they'd get trained and everything, we said, okay, we can make it work. And so we were able to set up our daily routine. And I still work. I'm sitting in my building right now, 5 minutes away from his preschool. So if there was an emergency, I could go and help. And we trained him on everything. And we just had a really good texting system set up. And we had like a text group among the teachers and the administrators there, and my husband and me. And we just did that.
So would anybody feel comfortable popping into the text chain, or was there somebody that was kind of leading the charge, like you or your husband, or how did that work?
So the cool thing was my husband he's really good about remembering like with lunchtime and stuff. So he would say like, hey, when we got more brave about giving him insulin beforehand, we would text the group and say, hey, lunch is coming up at 11:30. I know it's 11:15. Go ahead and give him 20 carbs, and then let's see what he does, and then give him the rest after lunch kind of thing. By the time he was getting finger sticks, and so they would always tell us what his number was and whatnot, and we would correct or bolus after he ate when he was still on the pump. But with the Omnipod and the Dexcom, they would just look at his number and say, hey, this is what his number says. Do you want us to do anything else? Unfortunately, because we were still working on getting his ratios down, he always ran a little high. We kind of let him do that for safety reasons because he's so active. So when he drops like a bombshell, and he'll go low real quick. And so they were normally correcting right before lunch and pre-bolusing. If there was ever anything, like we have all the bells and alarms set up where things can go off for lows and highs and stuff. But my husband was always the one to text and kind of just tell him, hey, do this for lunchtime.
What, is it different now, the management style? Because it's funny, you said something that I find that people say very commonly, blood sugars just drop out of nowhere all the time. Mm-hmm. And then as time passes, I think people come to realize that their boluses are probably like pretty severely mistimed, and it's creating an unbalance of, the insulin action against the impact of the carbs, and then they're crashing because the food's getting out of their system and the insulin's still behind, and then they feed that, and then they don't bolus, and they jump up again. It goes back and forth. Have you gotten better with that yet, or is that still sort of your reality?
We've had some days from listening to you is where we've made the big decision, like we've got to start getting his numbers under control. If Arden can have A1C of 5 whatever and Caleb's is 8 something, we got to work on getting it down. Mm-hmm. And so we're getting better about timing and pre-bolusing and correcting with bolusing for his number. We still rely on the pod and let the pod make the decision for the number. I've heard you talk about, I'm going to give Arden the equivalent of a juice box, in carbs. We still just kind of rely on our ratios right now and getting those together. But the last 6 months, he's been hanging out with just me. Him and his sister have been bored at home with mom. And so we've really been able to hone in on his numbers because I'm around all the time. If there is an emergency, we're not having to go run off somewhere and hope that the school nurse gets him in time or anything.
Right. So
we're getting there.
Yeah, you're using this time to make those adjustments. That's really cool. Yeah. I'm watching this person right now, their blood sugars, and I have, helped them a little. And it's funny to see somebody, not funny, but it's interesting. Excuse me. It's interesting to see somebody have a problem, be kind of told, oh, look, this is the fix. And then you help them with it, hold their hand with it for a day. And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Look at how stable these blood sugars are. I'm like, yeah, right. So just do those things. And then the next day they're like, they just fall right back into it again. Like, well, I was scared to give the insulin. And I was like, oh yeah, but we did it yesterday and you saw it was fine. And but I don't understand what happened. I'm like, do you not understand? Or what is it exactly? And then they'll kind of parrot back, well, I guess we should have done this. And I'm like, yeah, right. Like, so do that, Yeah. And then but the fear's real. Like it's like it's just like they've been indoctrinated to believe like this blood sugar is going to get low right here. And I said, but it didn't. The day we were together, I showed you, like, look, basal's right now, put the insulin in the right place for the meals. Didn't get too high, didn't get too low, do it again. And then they're like, well, I don't understand. Like the last 12 hours have been a mess. And I'm like, well, no, you do understand. Like, look here, you didn't pre-bolus this meal. It led to a high. Then you overcorrected, which led to a crashing low, which led to you eating too much food and then not putting in insulin for it. And then you got high and then you corrected. And now all of a sudden it's 12 hours later. And I said, so you're 12 hours later trying to say, like, I don't know what happened. I know what happened. 12 hours ago, you didn't pre-bolus lunch. That's what happened, So anyway, this person's going to get it. They're real bright and they want to do it and they're going to. And it's it's interesting to watch that resistance in the beginning to, what you think is going to happen and being so wrong. I've come to explaining it to people. And I don't know if I've ever said it on the podcast before, but I said, look, first we're going to get your basal right. And then you're going to see that everything that happened before wasn't what you thought. I said one time, I feel so bad about this. I said one time to a person who I didn't know on the phone, I said, imagine you've been married for like 20 years and it's been this happy marriage and everything's fine. You got a little house and your picket fence and a couple of kids and the dog's cute. And one day you find out your husband's got 3 other families. Right. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, he's got 3 other families. And I think I'm being like like fantastical when I'm making this really big, crazy story. He's got 3 other families. One's in another state. 2 are up the street. You know, everything you thought about your life isn't real. And I said, so all of your memories and your feelings and the way that none of it's true anymore. And the next thing I was going to say was, and so, you know, when your basal's really wrong like that, you're living sort of in a lie. You're seeing things happen that aren't really what's going on. But now we're going to make your basal right. And then you're going to be able to not only get things more predictive, but you'll actually be able to trust what you're seeing. And you're going to have to give away some notions that you have that really are based on these lies. And then she starts crying.
Aww.
And I'm like, wait, what's going on? Husband just left her. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Actually, if that person's listening, I still feel bad. But it was just like, so I have to think of another explanation, because that's the one that really like resonates with me. Like, you know, because people think they're so certain what's going on. And then you fix their basal and they're like, no, I don't understand. Like, this is what's happening. I'm like, no, he wasn't out volunteering. He was staying with his family on J Street right over there. Anyway, probably too much of a word picture. So I'm working on paring it down. I really do feel bad about that. But she rebounded though. And so, you know, I mean, listen, well, what was the other option? We were halfway through the conversation. She couldn't leave then. Right. But anyway, so are you going to take this system from preschool into kindergarten?
So we have already had his IHP, his individualized health plan meeting in 504, like all in one, with his the nurse and, you know, everybody else that needs to be involved at the primary school. And so we're pretty much going to have the same kind of system on a texting basis with the nurse. We have SugarMate for like numbers, if and that's something I have to talk to her about, if she wants to have like SugarMate up where she can watch that on the computer at school. I mean, my husband and I always have the Dexcom follow stuff, and so we've always got alarms going off. And because I know they're busy, they're dealing with a lot of stuff right now, and so part of me just kind of feels like he and I are just going to watch numbers, and we're going to see if the nurse is interested in having his Dexcom follow app on her phone. And because he is the only diabetic right now. No, I think he's one of 2 at the school right now for this year. And so it's not, you know, like 10 different kids and all sorts of alarms going off for all of them. We're a small town, and so we watch out for each other here. And so we're going to try the same system. We're hoping, we don't know his teacher is yet, so we're hoping that she'll be really willing to talk with us and either email back and forth with me, or our big thing is just communication, because he's not at the point, he can't read. So I can't text him and tell him, you know, hey, give yourself this much or anything. I have to do that with the adults, but we're hoping that they'll be willing to work with us enough and understand, like, hey, we can make your world really easy if you'll just send us a text here and there or respond to them. And your world can be really rough if you don't, because then you're going to have a kid that's like passed out on your floor if you're not careful and you don't listen to us.
Do you think you'll get a little more, like, does it grease the wheels that you work there a little bit?
So I'm not at that school,
but they know where you are though, right? Like you guys are like,
yes.
They're away. Yeah. Like, do you get like some professional courtesy or something like that? I guess is what I'm saying.
I think the big thing, unfortunately, I can be the, I can definitely be the squeaky wheel, because I can direct call, like work extensions kind of thing. But it does make me a lot more vocal for any diabetics at all in the system.
Yeah.
Just because it's so near and dear to me. And like, I actually just got trained yesterday to be one of the people to help with diabetic students at my school.
Cool.
And so I can help with other children that, I mean, I already know what I'm doing anyway, but you know, now I'm official. So yeah, I think it's a fine line, because my husband and I are, I mean, that's our kid. We're going to take care of him, and Mama Bear and Papa Bear are going to come out, but you also don't want to alienate anybody or make yourself look bad, because you do have to work where they do.
Yeah, it's and it sticks to you, that whole like,
yeah,
Kristin's unreasonable, like you know, like that thing. It's hard to get rid of that.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, obviously, I think you'll be fine. I was just wondering if it's any easier. I guess just being able to get to people is the easy part. Having like closer contact, but even that, I guess you're not being treated. It doesn't feel like you're being treated any differently than anybody else would be.
No, they're really good about it.
Yeah.
And luckily with the 504 practice, our district requires any kids with allergies, anything special, asthma, they all have 504s.
I'm excited. I'm actually sitting here while you're talking about this. I'm looking at this. I have a sample hypo pen, the Gvoke Glucagon hypo pen. And I keep thinking like the one reason I was excited for Arden to go back to school was so that I could go up to the nurse and go, look at this. Here, you don't have to mix it anymore. You just like do this and like just click. And it's all done. And meanwhile, Arden's never used glucagon once at school, but I still am like, wow, that's such a leap to put it into, you know, like this pre-mix thing that you just kind of, I don't know if I'm saying it in a way that people understand, but very similarly to
like EpiPen,
like an EpiPen, you just like pop the cap off and just go.
Yep.
And it's done. It's very cool. So
we have the powder for him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, whatever works for you is, I'm excited about this one. I think this one's interesting. So anyway, so you seem okay. Like you're like, now, all right, now let me paint a picture for you. All right. Caleb's in kindergarten and you hear through the grapevine, little girl in 3rd grade had a fever today. She went home and they're testing her for COVID. Is Caleb going to school tomorrow?
I have a feeling the school wouldn't let us just because I think they're, if the school's open, yes. And I'll tell you why in a second. But if they follow whatever procedures they've said right now, I have a feeling they'd be waiting for the results before they would open back up. It'd be that like 2 to 5 day deal.
Wow.
But Caleb, I've always heard there's 2 types of diabetics. There's the really sickly ones that seem to catch everything and they're always, in the hospital or they're always at home and their numbers are all over the place. Or there's the ones whose bodies are like on superhero status and their pancreas is dead because their immune system's so good that it's like killed off the pancreas and it just continues to kill everything that comes at it. And Caleb, I say this and hopefully I'm not shoot myself in the foot. But
I'll get an email like 3 weeks from now. Could you take that part out about Caleb never getting sick? He's got the bubonic plague,
exactly.
the measles, and an ingrown toenail. Yeah.
But he's always been a really healthy kid. His sister's the one that's like, got ear infections and fevers and stuff all the time. But and she's not type 1. But my husband and I are kind of convinced that his immune system is just so hardcore that it's like, take that COVID. And he's been to the hospital 1 time for his blood sugars. And it was because he had a 3-day stomach virus and we just he couldn't keep anything in. And we hadn't learned the whole glucagon, mini doses or anything yet.
Yeah.
So we got to hang out with endocrinologists at CHKD again for 3 days because he couldn't keep food down and his numbers, he just kept staying low. We couldn't get him up.
Yeah.
So
I'm certainly not trying to talk you out of it. I'm just, I think it's, first of all, it's a personal choice. And, it sounds like yours is as well thought out as anyone else's. I just, I'm wondering, I can't wait to find out what happens. Like, I hope it's all great. I want to get back to life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not looking to stay in my house and do all this forever. So if there's a path back, I'd like to be on it. That's for certain.
Yes.
And I don't know, like, do you think you'd give him a vaccine if one came out? Or do you think you would take it yourself or?
So being a teacher, I've been told that I'm not an essential worker, but I am because I'm,
Wait a second. Teachers aren't essential workers?
We're not the nurse, if you want to call it like nurses kind of thing. We're not that kind of level.
Now we're seeing what the problem is. But go ahead.
But we are essential workers in the schools. I mean, it's kind of hard to fill the spot if people are sick.
Yeah.
So,
no, the guy that drives my garbage truck is an essential worker in that garbage truck. And I think in life, like, I think everybody's essential at their job, which is, I understand the difference. What I was wondering was, like, are you really not a designated essential worker as a teacher?
I do not like, I don't have to come in on snow days. We can put it that way. But in the realm of like vaccines and the first people to get them.
Yeah.
Yes. I think they haven't talked about it yet. It's not like they haven't mentioned here, like everybody will get it if it comes out. But I mean, we're always the first to get flu vaccines, things like that. My husband and I personally are huge proponents. I'm the type, if there was a pill that's going to fix the problem, where is it? If there's a shot that's going to make me not feel like this, then, come on, let's do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would, I'm also a teacher, so I'm all about learning and trying. And so we would definitely have our family lined up. Let's do it.
Cool. Are you hearing about any teachers who fall into categories that may make them susceptible, who are skipping coming in?
So we have some teachers that are pregnant, but they're in the older grades, so they don't have students right now. So they're just continuing on, and they're able to teach from their rooms without kids there. We do have older teachers. I think we only have like 4 in our district that have actually said like, "Hey, I'm not going to trust it. Sorry, but I'm out." But I think in that case, it's like a FMLA thing. I'm not sure.
Right.
Everybody in my school, we're here. We're ready to go. You
have now absolutely encapsulated my thinking. I'm trying to imagine myself in 11th or 12th grade, my teacher 9 months pregnant. We're on a Zoom call. Her water breaks. And we, through Zoom, the class coaches her through the birth because the ambulance can't get to her. This is the scenario I'm making up in my mind. How great would that be? How great would it be if somebody actually yelled, Mrs. Patton, you got to move the camera. We can't see your vagina right. We don't know what to say. Like, I don't know if the head's out or not. It's breech. Call your cat. You need help. Seriously, there are going to be so many great videos of kids going to school online. They're already, I don't know if you've, all right, Kristin, I'm going to bleep this out. Okay. But there's a video online, and it's a classroom, right? It's like a high school classroom. And I swear to you, you start hearing kind of like heavy breathing and then a little commotion, and a female voice says, "Oh my God, you're so big."
Oh my gosh.
I swear to God. I'll bleep that out for everybody. And it was absolutely, I'm like, wait, what is this? My son's like, "You're going to want to listen to this again." And I'm like, okay. And so it's just, even in my son's own school. So I know people aren't making this up. He's in a class, and this very complicated thing is being described. And there's this boy in the class who's not on mute, and he thinks he is. And so the professor's like, "So does everyone understand?"
Oh my gosh.
And the kid just goes, "No, Kathy, actually, I don't understand. I'm completely confused and worried that I've chosen the wrong major." And there's a pause, and she goes, "John, I don't think your mic is muted." And he just goes, he almost breaks down. He goes, "I'm so sorry. I'm just really stressed out." And he went into this whole thing, and I was like, these are fascinating. I want all of these videos to be pulled together in one website where I can spend a year of my life watching people say things that they don't realize other people can hear.
What is it, like Zoom fails or something?
I don't know, but I mean, honestly, what are we doing? We shouldn't be filming this. We shouldn't be doing this podcast. I should be online registering a URL right now. I mean, really, there should be a YouTube just for this, because this is not going to stop. And I don't know if you haven't seen the other side, but I have. Like, I've seen Arden shut her camera off, mute what's going on, and start a text chain with the kids in class, where they're talking behind the teacher's back. So it's just like, what did she just say? I don't understand. And sometimes it's that easy. Like, it's just the kids talking without, like, about the class. But sometimes, teachers are people, and they sometimes do silly stuff. And then the kids are just like, I don't know. Are you going to allow yourself, do you have to be on video as a teacher?
So we do. We're hoping, us personally as teachers, since they can't be with us, we would like to have it required where the kids have to be on video, because, fourth graders, if they if they lock it out and they get rid of their video and their audio, like they're in the next room playing Fortnite or whatever. 100%. They're not sitting there still listening.
Have you seen that guy who figured out how to he made a video of himself appearing to listen to a Zoom and playing it in front of the camera, like on another device? You can't tell.
No. Oh, gosh.
You cannot tell.
Don't give ideas out like that.
Please. Do you think these kids need your help with this? They know what they're doing. They all know what they're doing. They're making money on TikTok. They know how to manipulate this whole thing. There's kids with careers from little booty dances. You understand? They don't need me to figure this is anything I can figure out. They figured out 3 months ago.
That's true.
But no.
So yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you have any concern about kids recording you?
I will not really. I mean, I don't do anything or say anything that's great enough or dumb enough to record. I mean, I might look kind of funny, but we're also in the work setting. So I'm not at home, rolling out of bed with a cup of coffee and my PJs or anything. I'm at work. I'm in my classroom. I've had to get ready for the day. And so hopefully they see a very, put together teacher sitting at her desk talking to them and not, the what I look like in the spring, like the mom rolling out in my leggings and t-shirt and stuff.
There's a homeless lady trying to teach us about social studies right now, and she looks like she's about to murder somebody. Yeah, that's how I would look normally. But let me help you here if I can. A little LED light at just the right angle washes out all the wrinkles, makes your double chin go away. It's fantastic. You absolutely have to invest in just a small little light. You want those kids to click on and be like, our teacher looks like a movie star over there. But no, I figure there's going to be screen grabs and they're going to be writing on your face with mustaches and, I feel like that's what I would be doing if I was a little kid.
whatever they do, my thing is, as long as they get the information. I mean,
how do you test remotely in a way that makes you feel like they're not cheating?
So we actually have some platforms. Google is awesome because you can do Google Forms and you can have quizzes through there. Mm-hmm. So it automatically grades it for you. And then we have a system that we use called Power Test. And it's you put all these tests, sort of like our SOLs here in Virginia. And you put everything in on there and the kids log in, and then it automatically grades, it shoots out their data to you. And it's locked out, their screen's locked out when they're in it. They can't try to go on Wikipedia and look up the answer really quick or anything. But at home, we kind of have a benefit of the doubt. We're trusting that they're doing what they're supposed to do and that there's an adult around making sure that they don't have the textbook open while they're doing the test. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you can't be 100% certain. We're just little by little chugging along, seeing how it'll work.
No, I hear you. It's going to be interesting. I want to be clear. I would cheat my absolute head off if I was in that situation. I remember who I was back then, and I would absolutely cheat, in a vicious way. It's just, I mean, listen, you're doing everything you can. Obviously, everyone's doing everything they can, but this is, I have to say too, I do think that an unintended good thing from kids having text is that when they get home, I see them they'll get confused and they'll start a text chain. They'll be like, listen, I don't understand problem number 6. And there are some kids who just want the answer. But there's always one kid who's like, no, you could understand this. I could explain it to you. Children are going to be really good at working in groups. I think is an unintended, benefit of this kind of concept of them being able to quote unquote cheat. And it really is interesting, to watch how things are changing. And at the same time, they're not as good as we hope in some places, and they're not as bad as we think in some places too. It's, it really is something else. I have a lot of hope. So, there's also a video online, by the way. I think it's a South American country. I can't think of where exactly. And they're having a a political meeting of, like the people who run the town. And one lady just rolls out of the shower and her camera's on and she doesn't realize it. Her phone's propped up and she thinks she's listening, but it's the video's on, and she just butt naked just walks out of the shower. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that won't happen.
No, I'm telling you, like, this is the year of videos that you're going to look at online and go, oh my God, this is fascinating. But yeah, absolutely great stuff. Well, listen, good luck, first of all, seriously, in figuring out a pathway. Is there any concern that this doesn't end? Or do you guys feel like in the spring, what is the long-term like outlook for how long you'll be doing this, I guess is my question.
So our students are locked in for the first semester. So they had to make their decision on hybrid or virtual through the end of January. And so what we've been told is that we're going to reassess, and they did like parent surveys to figure out what parents were willing to do and wanted to do. And so we were told that they'll do surveys, I guess, right before Christmas or right after or something. And they'll see, where the cases, have they blown up and they're crazy now, or are we at like 52 compared to 50 or something, where we are now, and they'll go from there. So I have been told that you're going to have families that can keep virtual the whole time. And then I'm pretty sure if we've gotten into hybrid and we're actually in school every other day, and our group's flip-flopping, then they'll continue that. My hope is it'd be amazing if this vaccine, a vaccine came out and everybody starts getting it and everybody's like, all right, let's do this, school, and everything opens back up and it's, it's like Disney World and magically everything is just amazing and we're back and spring is normal.
And that's it. Yeah.
But we gotta bide our time and see.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have to say that I think that all schools and industries and everyone is doing a reasonable job of being like, look, we're really hopeful. Like, we'll see in a week, we'll see in 2 weeks. We're going to keep going. Everyone is staying very flexible, which I think is interesting. Although I think it doesn't look flexible from the outside. I think sometimes you're like, they promised this and they knew they weren't going to do. I don't think anybody knows anything. No. I think whatever they think today very well could be bad information in a week or two. And well, listen, it's obviously sucks, and it would be very nice to go back to school and to work and to all the other things. So yeah, I have my fingers crossed. I hope it goes well. But
thanks.
Yeah, right. I hope it goes well for you specifically and for all of us, actually. Is there anything we didn't say that you were hoping to talk about? I took you on like a very twisty, windy road, but I actually feel like we got everything out that you were hoping to talk about. But am I wrong?
No. I think the biggest thing that I wish that parents out there, I'm on a lot of parent boards on Facebook, and all the parents are like, what are you doing with your kid? Is your kid going to school? And all these parents are, like, no, my child's not going to school. And, this disease is bad enough. And everything is blamed on diabetes. And I feel like when you start doing that, the kid kind of feels like, well, we couldn't go on vacation because of my diabetes, or, we couldn't have cake at grandma's birthday because of my diabetes. Like, parents got to remember their kid, there is a child first, and you don't always have to involve, kids are kids, and you don't always have to let them be privy to adult discussions. And so if you decide as a family, hey, we're not going to go to school, we're going to do virtual, then don't just say, well, because little Johnny's got diabetes, and even though he's well managed and he's, been sick twice in his life, he's not going to go. Don't always you kind of make the kid feel like they're at blame if you're not careful.
So your point is that do whatever you're going to do, but whether it's around Corona or anything else, don't turn to your kid and go, well, we saved up. We were going to go to Turks and Caicos, but we don't know how to keep your insulin cool, so we can't go. Like, it's, exactly. Don't put it on that, even if that is your reason, although that'd be a strange reason because there's a lot of easy ways to keep insulin cool. But even if that is your reason, don't let the kids think that's the reason, and kind of be cool about it. You got to be an adult in those scenarios. I'll tell you, it's funny because as you're talking, making your point just now, I think that the one caveat for me that's bigger, like I think it fits in all of the explanations you used, and I can see where it doesn't fit in the COVID explanation, because there really is an unknown that you're just not, like, you live in a place where you said there's like 50 cases, but I live in a place where there were a lot of cases. And there are people who were in New York City or Florida or other places where, California is still getting overrun, I think, where the situation's different. So it's situational too. And
it is.
And I think what you're seeing online with people just like, what are you doing? They're just dying for someone to give them some direction.
Yes.
Like anybody, just say something that I can believe in and kind of hook my wagon to. And I honestly believe that there's no way to know how this is going to go. This could end up being nothing for somebody, and it could end up being the end of someone's life. And then you get caught in that weird conversation where, how many kids dying is okay with us? Like where's the line? Like, where do you draw a line? Who gets to draw the line? And so I think that's why it's America, and you get to decide, so there's personal freedom. And, if your personal freedom is not completely, is not hurting someone else, then you're good. But whether it's Corona or anything else, your personal freedom doesn't get to outweigh my personal freedom, I guess is the way I think about it all the time. Aside of this as well, just, I have free speech, but you can't yell something that, the old adage, you can't yell fire in a theater and then I get trampled. That's not free speech. That's just not nice. So be nice. Just be nice, damn it. It's a weird thing to feel like you're protecting someone else. Like, that's not a position we find ourselves in very often. Like, I'm wearing a mask so you don't get sick, not so I don't get sick as much. I think that's an easy idea for people to wrap their heads around, and for some people it's just not. We were somewhere recently in a store, and there were 30 people in this kind of large warehouse space. It's, nobody was anywhere near each other. Everyone had a mask on, with the exception of this one person who had the mask, but just was wearing it around his neck. And it wasn't by mistake. He didn't forget. Like, he walked in as soon as he got past the people who were running the store. He purposely pulled this mask down over his neck. Now, I don't know the guy's situation, but it started to feel like, go ahead, somebody say something to me. I dare you. Like, it started having that vibe about it. And I'm like, I was finding myself thinking, like, look, man, I don't know. I don't know how much this mask is helping anybody or not helping anybody, but just, what are you doing? Like, why are you making everybody? It was almost like he walked in with his zipper down and was just like, go ahead, someone say something to me about it. I dare you to. And it was very strange. And it was a weird feeling to be around. And I don't even know how to put it into context for our conversation, honestly, other than it just felt strange. And I don't know if he's right or I'm right, or, could we all have been in there without a mask? I don't think so. But I don't know. And I don't know how long this is going to last either. I think that we put a lot of arbitrary stops on things. Like, it'll be all right by the fall. It'll be all right by the summer. It'll be all right by the spring. Like, I think it's all right when it's all right. And, I would agree. I don't know when the hell that is. Whole thing's confusing. I was going to curse. Really is.
Very much so.
So do you think, my last question, I'll let you go. Do you think that kids are going to come out of this year of school with the same level of understanding that they would have if they were in person? Is there a way to do that?
I think it depends on the kid. Kids learn all sorts of different ways, and some kids, they walk by a book and they learn everything that's in it. I mean, you're going to have the kids that are really into the virtual, and that's just where they shine, and they're little sponges and they soak it all up. You have kids that are in the classroom. We're going a lot slower. Our pace has to be slower because we're trying to keep pace between virtual and our, in class at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big thing is I heard somebody talked about it. It's like everybody's trying to say, all these kids are, they're not going to know everything. Well, guess what? Everybody's going to be in that boat. It's not like you're one kid who worked out in the fields for a year and didn't go to school at all, and everybody else went to school. Now they're behind. It's not like that. Everybody's in the same boat, unless you're homeschooling and that's, you're doing your own thing. So all the kids are on the same kind of playing field, and we just got to trust that they have parents at home that are willing to support them if they're virtual and hanging out, and that they're making sure they do their work and listen and not text in with a group of friends while the teacher's talking. And then you're going to have kids that in the classroom that are doing awesome because they're glad to be in school and they're able to interact with the teacher, even if they have to stay 6 feet apart, and that they're just happy to be here. They'll soak up anything and they want to listen to anything that the teacher says because it's a different adult than, mom and dad that they've seen all summer. So everybody's in the same boat right now.
That idea of incremental growth is what I took from what you just said is really interesting. Like I think it's easy to feel like there's a grouping of information I learn in 5th grade and a grouping of information I lose in 6th grade. And if I miss one of them, I've fallen behind. And now, oh gosh, like it reminds me of, like preschool is a great example. Like, at some point it became okay to learn how to read in kindergarten, but at some point people were like, well, I could probably teach my kid when they're 4 to read. And then the first 4-year-old who knew how to read made everybody else go, oh my God, I got to get my kid to learn how to read by the time he's 4 because he'll be behind, like as if that would make a difference. And I guess this really is the same idea. Like we're like, everybody's going through the same thing. There are going to be some people who shine and some people who would have shined who might not, and vice versa. But that's just natural selection for the moment, really. That's so interesting to think of it that way. See? That was
that
cool.
way outside of this too.
Yeah, some people are surging for. I'll tell you seriously, this podcast is a great example of that. In February, let me take a look real quick. I'll make the point to you. So, I have to pull it up real fast. I can look at the whole year real quick just to look. So I run the numbers for the year and then look at it by the month, right? So as January started, I had the best month I ever had. And in February, it did better. And in March, it did better still. And I was like, ooh, I'm experiencing some growth. Then Corona, and April dropped down like something like, I think it was 14% at the time, like total downloads. And I was like, oh God, like, is that it? Do podcasts not work anymore? You know what I mean? Like what's going on? And then I saw some reporting from reputable podcast hosting that said that podcast listening was down almost like 18%, I think. And I thought, oh, well, at least I'm not 18%, And then the next month it was right back to where it was in March. And then the growth continued June, July, August. And I thought, oh, okay, this is cool. But then I checked back in with the people who keep track of stuff like this. And a lot of podcasts are still really faltering and they're failing. And so even that's random. Like my topic apparently is something people are still willing and to listen to, even though life has changed. But there were other topics where people were like, no, I only listen to that when I commute, or I only listen to that and they just stopped. It stopped for them. And so some people grow and some people don't. And I guess it's not something you can really control. Like it's just, there's going to be some luck of the draw in this. It's interesting. All right. There's a lot to consider here, Kristin. We're not going to fix the world today. I appreciate you coming on and telling Caleb's story and sharing how you handled, preschool and I love it. Like, it's just, I love that interaction. The one thing I didn't ask you was, have you seen a decrease in A1C and an increase in stability over the couple of years?
We're getting there.
Yeah.
his body, diabetes, yay, throws us for a loop every once in a while, and it just depends on how active he is. We're finding out.
Okay.
If he's active, his numbers seem to be great and his ratio is really good. And he has this good flat line. And then if he has days where he's like vegging out on the couch or just, kind of hanging out, then
needs more insulin.
He'll be higher. And so we're still just trying to get that figured out. We're really hoping that just him being in the school environment and up and active and doing things that his ratios and his basal rates and stuff are perfect for that kind of day.
Yeah. I had the same thing when Arden stopped going into school. Her insulin needs changed pretty drastically in different ways than you're describing. But yeah, it's interesting. Like you almost need a sitting around basal rate and a up and moving basal rate,
And we have that. We have weekend versus weekday, and we've found his body is kind of different. Like he doesn't really drop while he's active. Like if he's running out at the beach or something, he's fine. It's like the hours after is where he'll start to drop. Mm-hmm. And we have to decrease his basal after the activity. And I know some kids, it's like during the activity or something, or for him, we've had days where if he's really active one day, the next day his numbers will be lower. And it's like his body's just got to have a chance to catch up.
Have you tried taking basal away prior to activity and getting into what I guess some people would call like a neutral, like no basal during the activity situation? Have you messed with that at all? It's hard, I know, because the activity sometimes does not present itself as like, we're going to be active in an hour, Yeah.
Yeah. For example, like we would have, lots of pool days and just hanging out in the backyard, and my kids would play in this little kiddie pool and they'd go crazy for like 2 hours. And I would have days where I would try to get his basal down before he started. I really would never take it away. I would just decrease it quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And still he would either ride high afterward and his body's like, haha, yeah, right. You thought you were doing something right. And then we would have days where I would not mess with it at all and see what happens. And then all of a sudden we're like throwing juice boxes at him 3 hours after he got out of the pool So his body it's like it's on a leg sometimes.
Yeah, it almost sounds like in that scenario you need to have like a much lower basal rate, like as the activity ends into the many hours afterwards. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, good luck. I hope you figure it out. That is, it does not sound like fun at all. In any way, just so in case you're wondering, there's nothing fun about what you just said. I really do appreciate you doing this. I really want to wish Kristin good luck as she heads back to school, and for all of us, honestly. I hope that whatever you're doing or have to do or need to do is safe for you and something that you're comfortable with. I realize it's a really difficult time, and it's genuinely hard to know what the right thing to do is. So good luck to everybody. Thanks so much to Omnipod and Dexcom for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Please go to myomnipod.com/juicebox and dexcom.com/juicebox to learn more about those sponsors. And of course, t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Oh, geez, I almost forgot. Do you want to hear something bizarre? So I just put up the episode How We Eat Vegan Cat with Jordan. If you haven't heard it, it's fun. And later that night, like the same day I put it up, right? Later that night, I get a notification from the website I use to run my giveaways. And they're like, hey, your giveaway's over. Choose a winner. So I'm like, all right. So I go to the website and I take my mouse and I click and I say, hey, pick a winner. And it goes, blah, 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 does whatever it does. And boom, you know who wins? Jordan. Isn't that not crazy? Here's why. I recorded that episode with Jordan 6 months ago. Put the episode up with her that day. The giveaway ends. The magic machine picked Jordan's name. Fucking crazy is what it is. Blew my mind. I was like, I just sat here. I was like, what mysticism is this? Anyway, Jordan got, what did Jordan get? I might forget what Jordan got. Hold on a second. Jordan got a sweatshirt from the podcast. The Know the Signs sweatshirt. It's got the list of, all the signs of symptoms of type 1 diabetes on the back. She got a bunch of Dexcom swag, a bunch of Omnipod swag. A really cool Dexcom t-shirt was in there, and an Omnipod shirt that I think for Dash, like a pretty red. Arden says they're very soft. She has one. She got, a bunch of stuff from Touched by Type 1. They're going to be sending her stuff. Lily's chocolate gift pack, and I understand, Jordan, that Lily's might have put a little extra chocolate in that gift pack, so look for that coming up. Jordan won a 30-minute consultation with Jenny Smith. And, just the good feeling of winning, I guess she got too. Anyway, thanks to everyone, almost 3,000 entries. Thanks to everyone for helping me to celebrate the 2 millionth download of the Juicebox podcast. I don't know what we'll do with 3 million, but if what I'm seeing is any indication, we won't have to wait a year to find out. Which I guess really should make me say thank you so much for sharing the podcast with people, because it is growing exponentially, and I have all of you to thank for that. Every time you share the podcast on Instagram or Facebook or tell a friend about it, the show just gains more and more listeners, and people seem to enjoy it, and they stick around and listen. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I don't know what else to say other than thank you. But 2 million is crazy. I can't wait to get to 5 million. 5 million. I think we can get to 5 million pretty easy. Let's see if we can't do that. I'm betting we can.